but that's the highest forces I've ever seen this system collect.
Pressure sensors, force meters, even motion capture technology, which creates stunning real-time scans of the human machine. The goal? Reveal the hidden secrets of superhuman strength in all of us. Next time you pack and move, don't call the movers. Call Ode Hagen. Ode is a professional strongman.
So explosive.
At 1.9 meters, 134 kilograms, he was recently crowned the strongest man in America. He's also 57 years old.
He's gonna get it up. Can he lock his arms? He does.
This log weighs 113 kilograms. Each case, 147 kilograms. And the dumbbell? 83 kilograms. This event is one of the classics for strongmen. The Atlas Stones. Each stone weighs over 140 kilograms. Lifting them takes the whole body.
When you're doing the Atlas stone, you have to use all muscle groups. When you're picking it up, you are using your posterior chain, your hamstrings, your glute, your lower back, and even your lats. Then you're grasping the stone, so you're also using your pecs and your biceps and your forearms to hold on to it. It's pretty much a complete body exercise.
While Ode's strength and technique are extraordinary, they're also more ordinary than you think. That's because lifting Atlas stones is the same as lifting any object. Just heed the advice your mother always gave you. Lift with your legs and buttocks, not your back.
Well, strongman really is a test of functional strength. So we are doing things that people are doing every day, but instead of picking up a book, we're picking up a big stone or a big log.
Really does deserve applause.
The movement mechanics that are used in that kind of exercise are the same movement mechanics we use in everyday life.
The physics don't change, whether it's an Atlas stone in competition or a box on moving day. But some feats of strength defy understanding and push even a strongman's limits. For the first test, a big weight. Bigger, really big. For some, the truck pull is the king of strongman events.
This is incredible.
Mark Philippi is a world's strongest man competitor. How does a 137-kilogram man pull a truck 85 times his weight?
Behind me is a 26,000-pound truck that we're going to hook Mark up to and see how far he can walk with it.
David Sandler is a sports physiologist and president of Strength Pro, a consulting firm for athletes. To determine how Mark pulls the truck, Sandler fits him with a battery of biomedical sensors.
We're going to measure his muscle activity, we're going to measure his breath-by-breath ventilation rate, and we're going to measure his heart rate.
The data will reveal how demanding the truck pull is on Mark's body. Assisting David is Alan Macy, an engineer with Biopac, a company that specializes in life sciences hardware and software. To see how much pulling force Mark generates, the team brings in Tom Koziel. Tom works with transducer techniques, specialists in the design of industrial load cells.
We have a 20,000-pound load cell that we have hooked up to the front of the truck that the strongman's going to pull.
The load cell will record Mark's pulling power, measured in kilograms of force. The biomedical data is synchronized to the load cell. The team can compare each of Mark's muscle movements to the force data from the cell, revealing not just how hard he pulls, but when and with which muscles.
We've never analyzed anything like this before. I expect heavy breathing and a very high heart rate. Minute by minute, this is probably the most demanding activity in all of sport. pull, 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 pull. Pull, 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 pull. There it is.
Mark pulled the truck 37 meters, and he did it in just 28 seconds. The key to this superhuman feat lies at the intersection of geometry and physics. A technology called motion capture reveals how. Like a sprinter in the blocks, Mark leans forward at an angle of approximately 45 degrees to drive the greatest force down the leg and into the ground. A higher angle, and he would generate less force on the line. A lower angle, and his feet couldn't maintain enough traction. Here's the surprise. Mark doesn't perform one sustained pull. He pulls the truck in repetitions. Despite the truck's 12 metric ton weight, it takes only 220 kilograms of force to get it rolling. After each pull, the line slackens and the force drops close to 45 kilograms. Because the truck is so heavy, friction slows it almost immediately as the force drops. Mark must pull again to keep it rolling, driving the force back up to nearly 220 kilograms. This on-off cycle continues during the entire pull, up to 220 kilograms and back down again and again. It's like doing a 220 kilogram squat, not once, but 48 times in less than 30 seconds. The biomedical data reveals its own surprise. Despite the enormous muscular strain, Mark's breathing remains steady, similar to a marathon runner.
Mark's breathing about once every second, but breathing pretty shallowly, like a liter each time. And so that's very regular during the course of the entire pull.
There's no major surge or overexertion. Mass power? Yes, but under rigid control.
Pulling a truck may seem like a feat of strength, but it's really a feat of strength endurance.
The strongman combines technique and training to maximize performance and push the absolute limits of superhuman strength. Are Olympic weightlifters. For them, the name of the game is speed. At 25 years old, Casey Bergener is on the U.S. weightlifting team and is a contender for the 2008 Olympic Games. Olympic lifting has two major moves: the clean and jerk and the snatch. Casey can lift 224 kilograms. That's like picking up a motorcycle and throwing it in the air. But the secret to being fast doesn't just happen in the muscles, it happens in the brain.
If you're not used to lifting very heavy weight, then there's no way possible for your body to sum the forces necessary to lift the weight because you haven't learned the pathways of what we call motor recruitment.
Motor recruitment means that the brain and muscles actually learn to do a specific task. And the more you train, the faster and more accurately your muscles can be recruited.
Sometimes people refer to it as muscle memory, but really what it is we store every movement we ever do in a really complex filing cabinet in our brain, and when we need to make those movement patterns, we pull that back out of the filing cabinet.
These are the secrets from Casey's mental filing cabinet, an Olympic lift from the inside out. As Casey grabs the weight, his brain initiates a complex sequence of events. An area called the motor cortex sends thousands of messages to the muscles. instructing which should fire and in what sequence. An explosive blast accelerates the bar upward. To jerk the weight, he dips down and loads elastic energy to the muscles, like compressing springs. He releases the tension and fires. A perfect Olympic lift. Put strength, speed, and muscle memory together, and you get power. The key to superhuman performance. But what happens when you take the strength of a powerlifter, the speed and muscle memory of an Olympic lifter, and combine them in the body of an average Joe? You get Dennis Rogers. 1 3/4 meters, 76 kilograms, and 50 years old. Yet Dennis is a grandmaster strongman. He bends and breaks things that shouldn't be bent or broken, at least not by the human body. Wrenches, phone books, even locked shackles. But this strongman combines strength, speed, and muscle memory in his most dangerous feat, the hand hammer.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a nail right here between my fingers. I'm gonna put a frying griddle on top of the board, and I'm gonna come down by swinging my arm all the way around, keeping a good grip on the nail, and I'm gonna attempt to go completely through the pan and the board.
How much force will that take?
Almost do this by where it...
Well, that's what we had originally...
To find out, we went to Instrong, a company that specializes in stressing, bending, and breaking things. They're a manufacturer of materials testing machinery. If you need to know what it takes to bend steel, shatter concrete, or break just about any item, they make a machine to do it. Leading the scientific team is Lorenzo Mino, the VP of Materials Testing for Instrong. To test the hand hammer, Mino and his team will use an industrial drop tower.
The challenging part of this particular test is to take a nail and drive it straight through a metallic object, frying pan, 2x4 piece of wood, and without bending it.
By testing the drop tower using different weights and speeds, the Instrong team establishes the minimum force Dennis needs to penetrate the stack with the nail.
What we found is that it took between 300 and 350 pounds of force to push this nail through the frying pan.
Okay, so you have a nail?
Yep,
Think you can do this?
I think so.
Well, we'll step back.
It's through.
Okay?
That's,
Okay.
that's amazing.
Thanks.
Human nail.
That is really amazing.
Force is the key to the hand hammer. Force, as physics defines it, equals mass times acceleration. In other words, the weight of Dennis's hand multiplied by how fast he can accelerate it. But his hand has little mass, about 450 grams. So how can he generate so much force? Motion capture reveals the secret. Speed. Dennis starts with his arm fully extended behind him. This position creates the longest possible lever, swinging his rigid arm from the shoulder joint, accelerating like a golf club on the 18th tee. As his arm arcs over his head, he pushes off his back leg, increasing the velocity of his fist. At impact, his hand reaches 109 kilometers per hour, delivering the force perfectly onto the head of the nail, driving it into the target. Calculations revealed that Dennis hit with 150 kilograms of force, exactly the amount predicted by the Instron test. Like the Olympic lifter, Dennis has achieved perfect speed, technique, and motor recruitment.
Dennis goes to nail a nail in through a pan and into a 2x4, and he keeps the nail straight. When the average person picks up a hammer and can't get the nail to go in properly. I don't want to break my fingers either doing this. Whoa!
Just hit me.
This is just an extreme example of that ability to exert force in an extremely specific way, exactly where he wants it to go.
Strength comes from practice, continuously training the muscles and the mind for what you need them to do. What happens when you train body and mind for years to combine strength, speed, and technique, and add bones of steel to the mix? You get these guys. Craig and Paul Pumphrey hold multiple world records for superhuman feats of strength. They've turned their bodies into wrecking balls. Any body part can do the job.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Legs, neck, head,
That's a tough act to follow.
even teeth. But what kind of force does it take to break concrete? And is it more than Paul's bones can take?
So what we're going to try to do here with this test is to actually calculate the amount of force that Paul exerts when he breaks the bricks.
Cindy Beer is a professor of biomedical engineering and an expert in impact injury at Wayne State University. If Paul's arm shatters, Cindy's equipment will tell her why.
We're looking at approximately anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds of force to actually break the bones.
I would expect to see a normal person to literally shatter their bone if they made contact at this velocity with this much power.
To test the force of Paul's strike, Cindy uses 2 load cells, the same kind used to measure the force of a car crash. To calculate his arm speed, an accelerometer. The rest is up to Paul.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's serious. Man, that is serious.
So is the data. Paul's double forearm strike registered 998 kilograms of force. Similar to the forces on a passenger in a 56-kilometer-per-hour car crash. 6 times the force needed to shatter the arm.
Any questions?
I'm glad my arm isn't broken.
Why isn't it broken? The answer is transformation. If a normal person hit the stack, the long bones in their arms would shatter under 998 kilograms of force. But Paul's bones are hardened by repetitive stress. The more he breaks, the harder they get. The secret lies inside the bone. Even though the long bones of the body are hollow like a drinking straw, they contain a calcified web of fibers called trabeculi. In a process known as Wolff's Law, these fibers enlarge and expand when stressed, making the bone denser and stronger. Paul has developed bones of steel from breaking concrete.
I think the thing that impressed me the most about Paul is just his technique. So he knows exactly what to do to get through all 12 blocks with the maximum amount of force from his forearm and his body.
Mass, momentum, and muscle memory leave another pile of destruction. But could the brothers lift an Atlas stone? Or do an Olympic clean and jerk?
At first glance, you look at some of us, everybody looks really big and strong. I'll just pull, I ain't gonna lift it. But when it comes to doing their events, like say if I went over and tried to do the clean and jerk or the snatch. Oh my God, no. There's no way it's gonna happen for me.
He's the man, I'm not. I salute you.
I might be able to do it with some light weight, but it's gonna be ugly because I'm not built that way. I haven't trained that way.
Like the Olympian here, I would not be able to walk over and to do what this man does because I'm not training for that. I'm training for what I do. And I've dedicated most of my life to do these things.
It takes a little practice. Obviously, something that I'm not used to do. I might have the strength and the agility and the ability to do that, but everything takes practice.
I can pick it up, but the big difference between me and a strong man is that those guys are picking up not one, not two, but like 6 in a row, boom, boom, boom. No way.
If I tried breaking the stack of concrete, I'd probably break my arm doing it.
I can try and break the bricks over with Paul's head.
To human performance. Add perfect technique and iron will, and you get superhuman performance. Throw in rock-hard bones, and you get the Pumphrey brothers. Brothers Craig and Paul Pumphrey put bone and muscle up against concrete, using fists, elbows, and forearms. While their breaks defy logic, one break defies common sense.
So now raise it even higher as far as the level of difficulty and danger. So now I'm going to take the same concrete that we've been breaking, and instead I'm going to strike the stack with my skull.
Like Paul's arm bones, Craig's skull has been hardened by Wolff's Law. He's got a hard head, but the real danger is to the skull's contents.
So I'm most concerned with how fast your head stops, or the deceleration of your head.
The headgear will measure his head deceleration, which will be used to calculate the Hicks scale, or head injury criterion. A Hicks score of 1,000 represents a 15% risk of brain injury. 2,000 to 3,000 is a severe skull fracture, brain injury, and could even be fatal. Imagine the car as your skull and the driver as your brain. A violent blow to your head creates so much momentum, your brain accelerates inside your skull. The shearing forces of brain and skull can cause a concussion, even brain damage. Or worse. Craig's skull delivers 825 kilograms of force. The headgear results are mind-blowing. Craig's Hicks score is not a fatal 3,000, not even a concussive 1,000. It's 14. How could such a devastating impact barely register? The secret is all in his head. With typical head trauma, the head rapidly decelerates. The brain sloshes within its fluid casing and slams into the skull, causing concussion. But years of breaking have made Craig's skull plates super hard and dense. The other key is technique. As Craig strikes the stack, his head doesn't come to a rapid stop. It keeps moving as he drives through the stack. There's no rapid deceleration and no apparent brain injury. It's a perfect follow-through on a perfect break. The Pumphreys define superhuman power, strength, speed, motor recruitment, and bones of steel. For their most extreme break, the Pumphrey brothers don't even use concrete. They use ice. 14 slabs of ice. Each is 30 centimeters wide, 122 centimeters tall, and 15 centimeters thick.
Oh, it's cold, it's cold.
Ice that thick can support 2 snowmobiles and their riders. And as it melts, it doesn't get weaker, it gets harder. When ice begins to melt, water molecules compact and air bubbles escape, making the block denser than when it was frozen solid.
Why do we do this crazy stuff, man? Did it all break?
Because I closed my eyes, man.
Everything's broke?
You rock.
You rock. You rock. You're cold. You're the man.
Strength, speed, power, and muscle memory make for another superhuman feat, and rock-hard bones drive it home with explosive results. But hardening bones isn't just for supermen. Everybody can strengthen their bones, and the older we get, the more important it becomes.
With aging, we see the bones become more brittle. If we strength train and we increase the bone thickness, we're probably going to have stronger bones that are going to be more healthy and be able to withstand more forces as we age.
But don't try this at home. You don't have to break concrete to harden your bones. Walking, running, or working out all help strengthen bones and prevent osteoporosis.
Basically, all we are is an enhanced version of an everyday person. We just take our art and apply it and take it to the extreme level in order to show what the human body can do.
When you think of big strength, you think big muscles. But big muscles and strong bones will only get you so far. That's because superhuman strength rests on a small foundation: the hands. Without hand strength, a strong man couldn't lift this, or this. And Craig Pumphrey couldn't do this. Craig held a Guinness World Record for rolling up a kitchen skillet like a newspaper. Just how much power does this man hold in the palm of his hands? For engineers from the industrial testing firm Instron, measuring this feat of strength posed the greatest challenge.
We're trying to convert a machine that knows how to go straight up and down into a curl, bend, push. And we're hoping that it will simulate this roll, twist, push that the pan rolling consists of.
Come on, come on.
To roll the skillet required 84 kilograms of force. But the machine can't mimic the marvel of the human hand. In fact, no machine can. The secret to hand strength lies in some of nature's most complex engineering. That is, much of hand strength doesn't start in the hands at all. That's because the fingers have no muscles. The muscles that bend the fingers are in the palm and mid-forearm. They're connected to the finger bones by tendons, which move the fingers like the strings of a puppet to close the grip. To determine how much force comes from Craig's fingers, he'll wear a pressure profile glove. Every force in every finger will be tracked, as will his palm pressure.
Now, I've never rolled up a skillet with rubber gloves on, so this is...
How do you think that's going to affect?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
Because we got plenty of skillets here, I guess, to do this.
3, 2, 1, go! We got 2588 time.
Craig generated so much force, the sensors were destroyed just 8 seconds in, at 56 kilograms and climbing. Despite this, Craig must have generated at least the power the Instron machine projected, 84 kilograms or more, and at least 56 kilograms came from the fingers themselves.
These are certainly the highest forces we've ever seen taken with this software, and never seen anything like that before from a human subject.
Rock on. Look at that.
Dennis Rogers is more proof that extreme strength begins in the hands and forearms. Just call him and ask if you can find his number. This is a 1,700-page phone book, torn by grip strength alone.
He just cut right through the phone book, literally like a saw would do.
So much for paper. Try solid steel.
I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up to protect my hands. You put a lot of pressure on your hands.
A 20-centimeter crescent wrench versus muscle.
Wow. It's solid.
It's solid, yeah.
It's absolutely
it's
solid.
solid.
I mean, I cannot budge this.
So what does it take to do the unbelievable? Lorenzo Mino and the Instron team think they know.
The strong man might be doing a bunch of different things. He's pushing up on the middle part of the thing, of the handle, and pushing down on both ends. So what we've done is we've configured that and simplified it into what we call a three-point bend test, where we're supporting it on either end and pushing down in the middle. So now the load is starting to...
The computer will reveal how much force was needed to bend it.
We found that it took over 500 pounds of pushing down the middle.
227 kilograms of force produced by brute strength. Finished off with wrists and forearms and held by human hands. When it comes to hand and wrist strength, it's not just wrenches that Dennis loves.
All right, so let me get this lock on you.
He's an escape artist, but he doesn't slip lock chains, he breaks them.
That's insane.
Pieces here for you. You can see they broke apart.
Just bust right through it.
Right.
But it's Craig Pumphrey that takes the Houdini act one step further. He thinks he's got the power to break free of police handcuffs. And he's had time to practice. When he's not busy breaking stuff, he's a cop in Indiana.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to place a pair of police handcuffs on Craig. These are legitimate handcuffs. As you can see, they're really solid. They're not like a toy handcuffs at all. These are really heavy, actually. I've never handled real police handcuffs before, but these are pretty heavy. They're definitely solid.
And how funny is that? I get to handcuff a cop.
Now I'm going now. Now I know how people feel when I handcuff them.
All right, tell me if it's too tight, because
Here, here. One more.
A little more. Right there. Oh, not too tight.
Yeah, no, that's good.
All right. This one's good.
One more click.
Okay.
But what does it take to get free of regulation police handcuffs? To find out, we return to Instrom.
What we're going to be testing here today is a set of handcuffs. And what we're going to simulate in a test machine is a strongman pulling them straight apart this way. While we're pulling on it, we'll be measuring force and displacement. The load's building up quickly. We're over 800 pounds, 900 pounds, 1,000, 1,200 pounds. There it goes.
In total, the team stressed 4 pairs of cuffs to failure. They took an average of 430 kilograms of force to break.
I'm impressed at what it must take to get out of these with your bare hands, because we applied over 1,000 pounds this way. We applied over 750 pounds sideways, but I have no idea how you can get out of these things with your bare hands now.
All right, it's all you.
Bent the body of them too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's I bent the whole thing. It's warped.
Again, I think it just shows that he's stronger than the equipment. I mean, he's basically taking that force right on his wrist. So all of that's concentrated in that one area. It's a very sensitive area. There's a lot of bones, a lot of tendons, and so he's actually putting that much force on his wrist while he's doing it.
Another feat for hands and wrists. Hand and wrist strength is a key to everyday strength, known as functional strength. It's the difference between beach muscles and working muscles. And the Pumphreys have worked muscle and bones to their absolute limits. This feat doesn't put a single bone at risk, but it's the most dangerous of them all.
I have here a lifetime warranty hot water bottle, guaranteed for life. What I'm going to attempt to do is place this over my mouth, hold it on my mouth, and blow into it until, hopefully, it explodes.
Inflation isn't the risk.
It's right out the side.
Deflation is. That's because air always flows from high pressure to low. That's why a balloon deflates when released. In this case, the high pressure air in the water bottle wants to equalize with the lower pressure in Paul's lungs. If the air rushes into his lungs, the result would be called pulmonary overinflation syndrome.
Your lungs don't expand like a water bottle will. They will only go so far, and once they reach that capacity, it's a hemorrhage.
Popping his lungs like balloons.
This is a thing that we do that makes me very nervous. I'm not that crazy about it, but at the same time, it's very impressive. It's incredible.
Compressors were never designed.
How incredible? A compressor demonstrates the load.
We've tried to rig up an air compressor to see if we can duplicate some things. Spit out the side. Well, looks like about 50 pounds of pressure it took to blow the water bottle up. He means
3.5 bar. Like the air pressure in a truck tire. And more than enough to blow out an average guy's lungs.
Shoot.
Duh.
Once again, the secret to superhuman performance is conditioning. Just as Paul has strengthened his bones by breaking concrete, he's strengthened his lungs for years. Breathing exercises help Paul inflate the water bottle. They can help anyone increase lung capacity, even improve lung conditions like asthma and emphysema. Simply increasing your level of activity will work the lungs and heart and increase their capacity.
We know that certainly the diaphragm can increase its strength. We know that the lungs develop a greater capacity, both their volume that they can expel and, of course, the diaphragm producing that forced air.
Further proof that in the world of superhuman strength, strongmen are exploding every boundary. For strongman Dennis Rogers, the ultimate feat of strength isn't rock, it's roll. Rolling thunder, that is. Harley-Davidson Fat Boys. Together, nearly 100 horsepower.
This feat is called the Human Link. I'm going to have straps around each arm, handles on the straps. I'm going to grab a hold of them, and the bikes are going to take off, and hopefully they won't rip me in two.
They could. In order to see how much pulling Dennis must endure, the team determines how much force each bike produces.
So we're going to strap it up to that pole, and it's going to be between the motorcycle and the pole, and it's going to measure how much force the bike puts against the strap.
Each bike produces 474 kilograms of force, equal to almost 5 full-grown men hanging from each arm. Either the bike stops, or his arms come out of their sockets. Nearly 950 kilograms of force, held back by a man weighing only 76 kilograms. Proof again that strength, speed, and power can come in a small package.
We see the little guy walking down the street, and we're like, we don't have to worry about that guy. But the guys that we've seen here have produced a tremendous amount of speed and power. And in particular, Dennis Rogers, with his ability to produce force that rapidly, he's the guy I'd be most afraid of in a dark alley.
All the tests raise a final question. Who's really the strongest man in the world?
Well, again, it goes back to specificity. What do you want done? If you want to clean and jerk, I'd take Casey any day of the week. You want to see an Atlas stone lifted? That's going to be Ode. You want to see a stack of bricks broken? Well, that's going to be one of the Pumphrey brothers. And if you want to see a nail driven through a 2x4, nobody else out there but Dennis Rogers is going to be able to perform that for you.
Strength is an applied discipline. The chosen strongman changes with the chosen work. Strength, speed, and power come in all shapes, all sizes, and all ages.
I'm 50. I got 4 grandchildren, and I'm stronger than I've ever been.
The science of strongmen reveals the true potential of the human body. Not just this body, any body.
Everybody have the potential in them. In order to get this potential to the max, you gotta do the work.
Beyond skill, beyond science, lies a place where strength, speed, and power seem to exceed human limits. Where strongmen become superhuman.
Steroïden zorgen voor de nodige controversies in de sportwereld. En in deel 2 van Superhuman zie je nu wat ze eigenlijk aanrichten in het menselijk lichaam.
De duistere wereld van steroïdemisbruik en de atleten die wanhopig perfectie nastreven. Superhuman Faking It. Zometeen.
Dick en Jem zijn uitvinders met een geweten. En ze hebben
heroin or crystal meth, but anabolic steroids.
Steroids are incredibly effective.
I used them a ton.
However, it comes at a price. The doctor came and said, you just had a massive heart attack and you're lucky to be alive.
This is Russian roulette that they're playing with themselves.
Millions have used anabolic steroids, including those you'd least suspect. No drug is so reviled, yet so misunderstood.
The fact of the matter is, you want our athletes using steroids.
From researchers, users, and abusers come stories from inside the world of steroids and a view of how steroids work from inside the body. What do we know about the real risks?
You cannot prove cause and effect. You just can't do it.
And can science separate fact from fiction in the steroids debate? In the Tour de France, blowouts usually happen during the race. In 2006, the big blowout happened 3 days after the race ended.
The Tour de France has taken yet another blow as American Floyd Landis has tested positive for steroids. It is the first time.
Officials announced they had found an abnormal ratio of testosterone in the urine of Floyd Landis, the American who won the Tour. The testosterone came from an unnatural source: anabolic steroids. Landis was stripped of his title. Before the race even began, several other riders were disqualified, including the top 2 contenders. Like Landis, they were accused of using steroids. It wasn't the Tour's first steroid scandal. In 1998, so many riders were found with performance-enhancing drugs, the race was dubbed the Tour of Shame.
I said years ago, and people raise their eyes, you can't win the Tour de France without drugs. It's been dirty since its inception. Not too many people are raising their eyebrows about that statement anymore.
A century ago, riders were discovered using alcohol, cocaine, chloroform, and something called horse ointment, all to improve performance. Then came amphetamines, blood doping, EPO, and steroids. Anabolic steroids are illegal without a prescription in many countries, including the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Australia. Yet millions in these countries have admitted using them illegally. The real number of users is anyone's guess.
Other than pedophilia, this is the most secretive behavior I've ever encountered. I've had people admit they've hit their spouse, that they've used cocaine, heroin, amphetamines. They'll admit all that before they will anabolic steroids.
In pro sports, adamant denials are par for the course.
Are you taking the fifth?
I'm not here to discuss the past.
I have never used steroids, period.
There's probably not an athlete alive at any level that hasn't considered using steroids, at least at some point in their career.
Are steroids dangerous? Many doctors say yes. How dangerous? Doctors disagree.
I'm far more concerned about tobacco and alcohol, methamphetamines, crystal meth, cocaine, and heroin by a long shot than I am anabolic steroids. However, that does not give us license to ignore it or not aggressively deal with the problem.
Many of us in the scientific world are a little worried that we may not fully appreciate the long-term dangers of these drugs.
When you see this repetitively occur, then you have to connect the dots.
Science isn't the only voice in the argument. Others have something to say, and each has paid a price. The champion whose health was ravaged by steroids. The father who lost a child to steroids. And even the athletes who defend steroids. Few understand steroids better than Kieran Kidder. Kieran is a competitive powerlifter. He used supplements for more than 15 years. At times, that included steroids.
Mwah.
I'm getting ready to go to the gym here in a little bit.
What are you training today?
Back and legs.
Kidder is also the founder of the World Powerlifting Organization.
Today it starts. I personally like to train about mid-morning. So I come out and I'll, try to have a little bit to eat, like an hour or two before I'm gonna train.
He believes steroids are a widely misunderstood drug.
Preconceived notions are that it's similar to doing narcotics and you're, wrapping a rubber band around your arm like a junkie does. But it's no different than taking, a multivitamin on a daily basis. It's just part of a routine.
Like this shot of vitamin B12, injectable steroids are taken the exact same way. And Kidder's earlier use of steroids gives him an insider's perspective on how to use them.
I always start out with injectables for a few weeks and then add different orals in over about a 16-week period.
Known as stacking, many believe that mixing several different steroids may produce better results.
It's good to have a few different compounds in you than an abundance of one. So that just keeps your receptors always clicking and popping and pulling the stuff into your body and utilizing it to the best that it can.
Many experts believe that steroids can push the physiologic limits of the muscle, making it bigger, faster, and stronger than it could get naturally. Steroids affect the body by enhancing the natural process of muscle building. The key to building muscle is protein synthesis and cellular repair. Skeletal muscle is made up of long fibrous chains containing proteins. Bundles of thousands of fibers make up the muscle itself. When an athlete engages in a heavy workout, this structure is damaged, causing micro tears in the muscle fibers. The body naturally repairs this damage by mending the torn fibers. The result is a muscle that's larger and stronger than before. And with each additional workout, the athlete adds bulk, strength, and speed. With steroids, muscle repair can come faster, much faster.
A normal person, when they work out, they're going to break down their muscle, and it takes about 48 hours in between workouts for your muscles to repair themselves. Well, anabolic steroids speed up that process. So rather than taking 48 hours, it may be only 24 hours. So you're able to work out more frequently, longer, more intensely, and then recover faster so you can work out again.
And they can build muscles far beyond what an athlete can do naturally. Scientists realized the potential of anabolic steroids soon after they appeared. In 1939, German scientist Adolf Butenandt won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry for his pioneering work on testosterone. Hitler refused to let him accept the prize, but from World War to the Cold War, Germany pioneered steroids research. At the 1976 Olympics in Montreal, East German athletes won 40 gold medals, including 11 in women's swimming.
During the 70s, the East Germans had a phenomenal record in the pool. And it wasn't until about 20 years later when it finally emerged that they had a drug program in place and they were just taking all the medals, literally.
By the end of the 1970s, steroids had infected sports in other countries, but steroids was not yet a household word.
Kijk, u kunt overal sparen zonder vervelende voorwaarden. Alleen krijgt u dan ook een vervelend lage rente. Zoals bij de Postbank, de ABN AMRO en de Rabobank. Bij Alex spaart u zonder vervelende voorwaarden, maar met een hoge rente. Open eenvoudig een spaarrekening op alex.nl.
Welcome to Beverly Hills, home of the rich and famous, with their luxurious houses. Just look at them.
Tarnished. Then, in rushed Ben Johnson.
And they're off. Ben Johnson, Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis is
way out.
And Ben Johnson really has it. Look at McRae is in second. And it's Ben Johnson, and he's going to walk. Ben Johnson first.
In 1988, the Canadian sprinter won the gold in the 100-meter dash in the Seoul Olympic Games, shattering the world record. A urine test revealed his secret.
Ben Johnson did two things. One is he got his medal taken away for doping with anabolic steroids. Two is he ran the fastest 100 meters that had ever been recorded in world history. So he showed really the world that these were effective drugs. Because when Ben Johnson came back without steroids 2 years later, the headlines were, Ben Johnson is back and he's slower.
After the Johnson scandal, the American government held hearings on outlawing the non-medical use of anabolic steroids. Those opposed included the American Medical Association, the Food and Drug Administration, even the Drug Enforcement Administration. All testified that steroids weren't addictive and didn't warrant being banned. Despite this, in 1990, Congress voted to make steroids illegal without a prescription.
Most who take steroids think there's minimum risk or low risk or risk they can handle. But that's the problem. This very powerful hormone that's going to your brain, it's going to your muscles, it's going to your liver, it's going everywhere, and it's changing you.
The challenge for science is proving it. But not all steroids are created equal. For every athlete who secretly injects steroids, there's someone like this man who legally uses a different type of steroid right out in the open. There are several classes of steroids. Most often confused are anabolic steroids and corticosteroids. Both are synthetic versions of hormones produced naturally in the body, but they perform two completely different tasks. Athletes use anabolic steroids to build muscle. Corticosteroids are used by doctors to reduce inflammation. Everything from arthritis medication to asthma inhalers contain corticosteroids. Unlike anabolic steroids, they cannot build muscle. But anabolic steroids have their place in legitimate medicine as well.
There are a few things that anabolic steroids are used for, and I use them in my practice as well. I use them for men, usually older men, who lose the ability to make their own testosterone.
Other doctors prescribe steroids to treat muscle loss, anemia, stunted growth, and delayed puberty. Anabolic steroids are simply synthetic versions of testosterone, the primary male hormone. In short, they're man-made versions of natural testosterone produced in a lab instead of the body.
So if we're going to give somebody testosterone, all we're doing is giving them back what their body would normally be making. It's not giving them any more than that.
But if you take more than the physiologic dose, the results can be dramatic. For unknown reasons, when an athlete trains intensely, natural testosterone levels in the body drop precipitously, sometimes to the level of a castrated man. The body also releases another hormone called glucocorticoids to reduce inflammation. But glucocorticoids have a second effect. They are catabolic, meaning they break down muscle tissue. It's a double whammy against the muscle, a drop in testosterone and an increase in muscle-wasting hormone. It's speculated that steroids affect the hormone imbalance in two ways. First, they may replenish testosterone levels after a workout, accelerating muscle repair. They may also block the muscle-wasting effects of glucocorticoids. The result is a muscle that quickly gets bigger and stronger. For athletes, inhibiting these two roadblocks to muscle building provides a huge advantage.
Steroids are incredibly effective. A young guy who eats badly, sleeps badly, smokes, drinks too much alcohol, misses half of his gym workouts, and takes steroids can blow away the most dedicated, most gifted athlete who does not take steroids in terms of sheer muscle gain.
But to achieve those gains takes high doses of steroids. Most doctors prescribe anabolic steroids in what they call a physiologic dose, the amount of testosterone a man produces naturally. Some endurance athletes who want to reduce recuperation between workouts use a physiologic dose of steroids. Some sprinters with higher strength and power needs may use twice the natural amount. But what about bodybuilders and weightlifters?
In some of the studies that we have done, we have encountered guys who are taking the equivalent of 100 times the natural output of testosterone. In other words, if you figure that the normal male testis manufactures between 50 and 75 milligrams of testosterone a week, we've seen guys who are taking 5,000 or 6,000 milligrams of testosterone or its equivalent per week from injections or pills.
And the more you take, the bigger you can get. For many athletes, anabolic steroids seem like the proverbial fountain of youth.
Steroids have profound effects. You could see results in as little as 2 weeks, maybe even less. You'll start to actually see an increase in muscle size pretty rapidly. If you train for endurance, your muscles are going to take on endurance-like characteristics. If you train for strength, your muscles are going to take on strength characteristics. And if you're going to train for size, your muscles are going to take on size-like characteristics.
Most athletes have few shots at success. In some sports, it may only be a few years.
First of all, athletes work with small windows of opportunities. They don't have forever to make the varsity, to get a college scholarship, to get a pro contract. Secondly, these drugs will take you places that you can lift for 50 years and you'll never get to naturally. They're that potent.
That's when some athletes turn to anabolic steroids for an extra edge to beat the clock and cash in on success.
I can understand when an athlete comes to me, a 19-year-old kid comes to me on the brink of signing a $50 million contract, numbers that most of us can't even imagine at 19 years of age. What is your choice going to be? It's clear cut. And as bad as that sounds, as a coach, I'm telling the kids how to try to do this naturally.
The pressure to succeed is matched only by the potential of steroids to increase performance and mixed messages about the risks. In the lab, doctors espouse their dangers, but in the gym, most users just weren't seeing the evidence. But others know differently. Kieran Kidder believes that steroids have their place, but they deserve respect.
I know people that have taken them 15, 20 years straight. But, you know, the reality is you gotta let your body go back to its natural process. It's just like anything, like life is a happy medium. You eat too much food, you're gonna be fat. You drive too fast, you're gonna get in an accident.
Although steroids have been around since the 1930s, the real dangers remain elusive. But many scientists believe that any drug in large doses presents a risk.
There has never been a drug made that does not have side effects. There's no risk-free drug that you put in your body. I don't think there ever will be. And I think it's naive to think you're not putting yourself at risk. I mean, these drugs are way too powerful.
But the costs of indiscriminate steroid use remained undefined, and many experts fear that these users will eventually pay a medical price. In 1991, one American athlete became the poster boy for the price of steroids. Former professional football player Lyle Alzado announced he was dying of central nervous system lymphoma. He blamed steroids. Yet, even in his confession, Alzado diluted the dangers.
There was a double-edged sword to his comments that he made in Sports Illustrated. What he told the world is, yes, steroids cause my problem, but there is a safe way to take steroids.
But not without a doctor's supervision. Experts agree the abuse of steroids comes with several undesirable side effects. Men may experience a number of short-term cosmetic changes. They can include severe acne on the back, as well as on the face. gynecomastia, the accumulation of fat under the nipples causing the breasts to swell, and testicular atrophy, the shrinking of the testicles to half their normal size. For women, the androgenic or masculinizing side effects are more pronounced, including male pattern baldness, growth of facial hair, and even a permanent deepening of the voice. The breasts may also shrink, and the clitoris enlarge. Other side effects are debatable. One is a spike in aggression from steroid use, known as roid rage.
Atlanta authorities are investigating the bizarre murder-suicide involving professional wrestler Chris Benoit and are asking if steroids could have played a part.
Animal and human studies show high doses of testosterone increase aggression. Yet not all anabolic steroid users undergo a change of personality.
Steroids make an unstable person more unstable. They make an aggressive person more aggressive.
Studies suggest only a minority of users turn violent. Between 1993 and 2000, 4 double-blind clinical trials administered high doses of steroids to 109 men. Roughly 5% experienced reckless or aggressive behaviors.
You can have 5 different guys who take the same dose of steroids, 4 of whom will have virtually no psychiatric changes, and 1 of whom will go completely berserk.
Yet some doctors feel roid rage is exaggerated.
I will admit, I think maybe roid rage does exist. I think it's very rare. I think it's been blown way out of perspective.
Roid rage isn't the only side effect under debate.
People take steroids, men and women, because it works. But it comes at a price.
The price, perhaps life itself. Professional bodybuilder Steve Mahalik was once Mr. USA, and Mr. America, and Mr. Universe. He was also a devout steroid user. Mahalik began using steroids in 1975 to prepare for the Mr. Universe competition. He kept using them for 10 years. He believes steroids help buy something priceless, the pinnacle of bodybuilding.
I used them a ton, but you know, whatever comes up must come crashing down eventually. Finally, I collapsed on the stage and went to the hospital, and I had 2 grapefruit-sized tumors on my liver.
Mahalik confirmed what scientists believe. In the short term, steroids can build your body. But in the long run, you may pay a price. On the outside, a steroid user might just look bigger, more masculine. But on the inside, doctors believe this could happen. One type of oral steroid has been linked to tumors and cancers of the liver. Others have suffered a rare condition called peliosis hepatitis, where blood-filled cysts form on the liver and can rupture, causing internal bleeding. Some studies also suggest that tumors can form on the kidneys, decreasing function. As the body loses its ability to filter the blood, toxins build up, leading to fluid retention, increased blood pressure, and eventually, kidney failure. But even more alarming is the effect of steroids on the heart. Steroids can dramatically alter cholesterol levels, increasing the risk of heart attack or stroke. A catalog of life-threatening diseases. Steve Mahalik has had them all. Liver tumors, pancreatitis, gallbladder disease, a heart attack, a stroke, and the list goes on.
All my organs were shutting down one by one, piece by piece, and all my arteries were clogged. All 7 in my heart. I had no blood going to my heart. The doctor woke me up. He said he saw more blood in a dead person than he saw of me being alive.
Steve has company.
Bear the pain, spare the shame. Let's go. My group of champion bodybuilders, 70s, 80s bodybuilders, are now just starting getting bypass surgery, who's getting valve replacement surgery, who has liver problems, kidney problems, who died from a heart attack. It's all happening. No one ever smoked. They didn't drink. Our diets were impeccable.
We exercised as well as did aerobic cardiovascular work. We followed every natural rule and law to keep us healthy and alive.
Except they all used steroids.
That's the difference. There's not one variable. It's only one variable amongst all of us.
But while Mahalik blames steroids, science has reservations.
Last 70 years that these drugs have been used in medicine, I'm not aware of any study that's evaluated their long-term effects. A lot of what you see on some of these issues is case studies or anecdotes. Well, this person used steroids and he had a liver cancer, he had a kidney tumor, and from a methodology standpoint, that's the lowest of the low. I mean, you cannot prove cause and effect. You just can't do it.
Proving cause and effect is made harder by steroid users who often mix other drugs, including growth hormone, insulin, thyroid hormone, and amphetamines. Pinpointing the dangers of steroids has been difficult. The evidence may be there, but it has proven elusive.
On the one hand, there are hundreds of thousands of people who have used the drugs who don't appear superficially to be particularly the worse for wear. But then on the other hand, there are every few months stories about another old-time bodybuilder or athlete who abruptly died under somewhat mysterious circumstances.
Pro wrestler Brian Pillman died at 35 of a heart attack. Wrestler Eddie Guerrero died at 38 from heart disease. And Davey Boy Smith was dead at 39. 3 deaths in the last decade, all from heart disease, and all with a common suspect. For years, doctors have suspected a link between steroids and heart disease. Steroids lower the level of HDL cholesterol in the bloodstream, also known as good cholesterol. Doctors believe HDL protects the cardiovascular system from heart disease. While steroid users may look perfectly healthy on the outside, the inside can tell a different story. Steroids can also dramatically raise bad cholesterol, or LDL. This can cause a hardening of the arteries and a significant buildup of plaque along the artery wall. As plaque clogs the artery, blood flow is restricted. If left unchecked, it can cause a heart attack. Likewise, if any plaque breaks off, it can lodge in smaller blood vessels, causing a heart attack or stroke. And the damage can be done after only a few years of steroid use. Exhibit A is Danny McDermott. Now a 54-year-old financial advisor, Danny was once a champion bodybuilder.
Back when I was competing, and you want to be at that, national level, the international level, you could bet your competition's using steroids.
So was Danny. At 36, 7 years after quitting steroids in bodybuilding, he took a body blow.
The doctor came and said, "You just had a massive heart attack and you're lucky to be alive."
McDermott is now a patient of Dr. Larry Santora, a director of cardiac CT at California's Orange County Heart Institute.
So you have 3 major arteries, one down the front, one on the right that supplies the bottom of the heart, and then one behind the heart. You have atherosclerosis or plaque in each of those. Rotate.
In the fall of 2006, Santora published the first ever observational study on steroids and heart disease. It was also the first study to use an electron beam CT scanner to see how much plaque had built up in steroid users.
So this is hardening of the arteries.
Santora analyzed 14 bodybuilders between ages 35 and 55 who used steroids for an average of 12 years.
A significant amount had severe plaque at a very early age, in their 30s, the type of plaque that you might see in somebody in their 70s or 80s. The outside they look great, they're massive, well-developed, they're professional bodybuilders, but inside their arteries were severely calcified or hardened. And so this is premature hardening of the arteries, with no other explanation other than taking steroids. All three of your major arteries, you have atherosclerosis or plaque in each of those. To get to this level of bodybuilding and a professional athlete who uses it and performs, they're going to need to take it for several years, and that's when you're going to start to see the effect. And these guys have been doing it for 10, 12, 15 years, and they're going to die suddenly. We're going to see people, instead of dying in their 70s or late 60s, in their 40s, 50s, maybe even in their mid-30s.
I'm lucky that I got through all that so far, but I don't think I would do it again. Knowing what I know today, I would not do it again.
Yet Santora can't prove his fears. His study group was too small to draw big conclusions.
The problem with studying illicit drug use in general, and with steroids in particular, is that you just can't go out and do a laboratory study. You can't intentionally put people on steroids for 20 years to find out what happens to them, because the Human Studies Committee would not permit that. So for ethical reasons, the only way that you can study these phenomena is just to go out there in nature and see what you can find. And when you do that, there are all kinds of methodological limitations which make it hard to get convincing, solid results without the risk of some sort of distortion.
As doctors search for answers, some steroid users ignore the danger signs. Some doctors blame their own profession.
It took the medical community an amazingly long time to actually concede that steroids do work. Even today, you can still find, for example, in the physician's desk reference, statements that steroids have no value for enhancing athletic performance. So that having failed on that count, they were also discounted when they started talking about potential dangers of steroids because they had already lost their credibility.
And with the loss of medical credibility came increased use. Today, steroids can be found everywhere and in every sport.
They're going to always be part of powerlifting and bodybuilding and strongman sports like that. Now they've become so prevalent in Major League Baseball and other professional sports.
In 2005, some of baseball's greatest players addressed the American Congress on steroid use in professional sports.
Members of the committee, distinguished guests, my name is Jose Canseco, and for 17 years I played professional baseball.
In his book and during testimony, Canseco spoke of rampant steroid use in baseball. Since then, more heroes have fallen. In 2007, American baseball took a major blow. In a massive investigation, over 80 players from every American team were implicated, including two of the game's best players, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Both have denied the accusations. For athletes, millions of dollars and world records can ride on gaining the slightest edge. Now, steroids are moving into arenas where the stakes are small, but the risks are just as high.
They're going to always be part of powerlifting and bodybuilding and strongman sports like that. But they really have no business, in my opinion, being in baseball and football and these games that kids start out playing in their backyards. The most detrimental thing that a teenager can do is take steroids.
But they are, and Taylor Hooton was one of them.
1, 2, 3, win!
Taylor was a great kid. Always had a smile on his face, cracking jokes, very, very popular at school, and he must have been a good-looking kid. Girls over here all the time. But he made great grades in school. He was carrying a 3.8 grade average. He'd made super scores on his SATs, and he and I were getting ready to make college visits.
Taylor Hooton was an average 16-year-old high school athlete until February 2003. That's when he decided to try out for the varsity baseball team. In less than 3 months, he gained 14 kilograms, along with acne, a puffy face, and bad breath, all side effects of steroids. According to the Centers for Disease Control, between 700 and 850,000 teens have used steroids, 1 in 20.
All you need to do is read Jose Canseco's book. A clear message gets sent that at least in his opinion, steroids were a panacea to success. What can be bad about earning millions of dollars, being on the TV every night, setting records, having the women fawn all over them? Very little downside has befallen our professional athletes, those that have chosen to use steroids.
According to experts, few teens understand the dangers lurking in a growing steroid market. Today, steroids can be easily purchased online from labs in places like Mexico, Thailand, and India.
We've heard stories of those vials being filled with flaxseed oil, all the way to those vials containing motor oil. And these kids, our children, are taking these and injecting them into the veins.
Soon after Taylor began taking steroids, his personality changed.
But what we saw in Taylor was something that was much more severe than normal mood swing. On 2 occasions, he took his pitching hand and drove it through a sheetrock wall. All of the danger signs, everything we needed to know was right in front of us. But we didn't recognize it as steroids because neither we nor our family doctor had been trained to know what to look for.
While quitting steroids, Taylor slid into a deep depression. On the morning of July 15, 2003, he went into his room, put a belt around his neck, and hanged himself.
Stuff like this is not supposed to happen in middle America, well-educated community. But the fact of the matter is, it is going on.
For Taylor Hooten, steroids exacted a price out of all proportion to his goal. He wasn't aiming for a major league contract or a 7-figure salary. He just wanted what any teen wants, to belong.
After Taylor died, several of the kids in particular that were on Taylor's team admitted to my wife and I that they had been doing steroids. And for a period, most of them were scared straight. But something happened over time, something that's really, really scary. A number of those kids went back to using anabolic steroids within a few weeks after we put Taylor in the ground.
The temptation to use steroids seemed to outweigh the perceived risks. But what could cause a healthy teen to take his own life? The answer lies deep in the brain.
When you take steroids, your hypothalamus in your brain sees all of this steroid coming in from the outside. And so it sends a message down to the testis saying, we've already got plenty of steroids on board, don't manufacture any more, there's ample on supply already.
Overwhelmed, the testes shut down, a condition called hypogonadism. Taylor stopped taking steroids cold turkey, leaving him low on testosterone and high on risk.
They get profound depressions and may even get suicidal during that period when their testosterone level is low before the testis can come back online.
In one survey of adults who use steroids, 4% reported attempting suicide during withdrawal.
His home run ball from June 16th of 2001, and the reason that's important, it was his first and at the same time his very last home run. I got to go chasing this out in the weeds after he hit it, very much like a dad would do when your kid's just hit his first home run.
Don Hooten now runs a foundation in Taylor's name to protect other teens from steroids. In 2007, Texas passed Taylor's Law, the nation's largest steroid screening program for high school athletes. But many steroid users now use creams, making detection more difficult. Now, harder to detect, people of all ages are joining the ranks of steroid users. But today, the fastest growing group of steroid users are not high school students or professional athletes.
The stereotypical perception is some giant freak with a syringe sticking out of his forehead and you know, it's gonna eat my children for lunch, and you know, that's just the people that are like, they're like, that's their perception. The reality is that there's millions of people that use steroids that are out in the general public that you would have no idea, that resemble an everyday person.
It's estimated that over 50% of all steroid users are not athletes of any kind, but everyday people turning to steroids just to look better.
My gosh, We're living in a generation of young men and women that have been brainwashed by Madison Avenue to be buffed. We're living in a generation where all they know is instant gratification.
The brainwashing starts young, and it's getting worse.
If you look at the action toys around the late 1970s, they look like perfectly ordinary guys. But if you then look at the identical action toys of these same figures that came out in the mid-1990s, they look like they had been put on steroids.
In 1964, a popular action figure had the equivalent of 12.5-inch biceps. By 1991, they'd grown to 16.5 inches. By the mid-90s, 27 inches. By definition, completely steroidal. Dr. Harrison Pope is one of the foremost medical experts on male body obsession. He's tracked steroid users for over 2 decades.
I was quite struck that a number of these guys had what I called reverse anorexia nervosa. They would look in the mirror and think that they looked small and wimpy, even though they were actually large and muscular.
Pope estimates that reverse anorexia nervosa afflicts up to 2% of all men, but among bodybuilders, closer to 10%.
Anabolic steroids feed the ego, make it powerful, make it seem all important. And so you live your life through ego, and you expect it. You expect to get that response from people. And you don't know how to go somewhere without people looking at you. You don't know how to walk into a restaurant and everybody going, wow. You don't know how to go to the beach and everybody going, wow. You get kind of used to that.
Today, the world of elite bodybuilding favors size over symmetry, bulk over beauty, a vision warped by steroids.
It's very difficult for them to win in the arena of the steroid contest in bodybuilding.
From Mr. Universe to the boy next door, any athlete can be tempted by steroids, even the very best. Of all the competitions infected by steroids, the Tour de France is neither the oldest nor the most prestigious. At the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, the American track and field star Marion Jones won 5 medals. Sports writers crowned her the greatest female athlete in the world. However, in 2007, she admitted using steroids while training for the Summer Games. Her world records were invalidated, her medals forfeited. At age 31, one of the world's greatest female athletes announced her retirement from her sport.
As a trainer, do I want my athletes on steroids? Well, obviously not. But as a consumer, you're demanding the very best out of athletes. And those athletes are going to do what they can to get that to happen. And when they do that, they start to push that limit. And that's a limit that, unfortunately is found in that anabolic steroid.
For some athletes, the reward of victory outweighs the chances of getting caught. Just 1 year after Floyd Landis was stripped of his win in the Tour de France, steroids were back. In 2007, a top rider was expelled for doping with steroids. If athletes still use steroids in one of the most drug-tested competitions, where won't they use them? Oddly, in the very sport where they may be most abused. In an ocean of steroids, a handful of athletes are swimming against the tide. In Portland, Maine, begins a competition with unusual athletes. Natural bodybuilders, rebels in a sport infected by steroids. These athletes reject steroids, both the benefits and the costs. And no one knows the costs better than their coach, former Mr. Universe and ex-steroid user, Steve Mahalik.
Okay, guys, this is what it's all about. All that hard work we put in the gym just amounts to a few minutes on stage, so just really enjoy yourself.
From Watertown, Massachusetts, please welcome contestant number 8, Michael Manovian.
The most formidable challenger here is unseen, temptation. Winning is intoxicating, and steroids are enticing, even to a man they'd nearly killed.
I will have suffered through the stroke, the heart attack, the liver disorders, the mental disorders, the mental anguish. But would I personally do it again? Yes. Listen to the drawer of that stuff. For one moment in time, Steve Mihalik was their best there was on planet Earth. #1. That's a hard thing to discount. Come on, everything you got.
At Mihalik's gym on Long Island, he trains a new generation of bodybuilders to do as he says, not as he did.
These kids and these grown men need a leader. They need someone who's been there. They need someone who can take them to the place they want to go without getting sick or ill. Spare the pain, spare the shame. Let's go. So what I try to do when a guy's sincere, I will teach them how to exercise and to have a degree of muscle that their genetics will allow them to have, and make them understand that that's as good as you're going to get. 10 more, come on. I'm looking, I'm watching their muscles. They got a lot in them. There you go, baby. All right. It's very difficult for them to win in the arena of the steroid contest and bodybuilding. You can win clean in natural contests, and you can win clean up to certain levels in pro contests. What, from golfer to bodybuilder? Because after that, you cannot. That's true.
It's a harsh reality for athletes. For many, steroids can be priceless. The difference between a salary and a fortune, between mediocrity and stardom.
One of our patients was able to summarize it in just a single word, namely, why should I be Clark Kent when I can be Superman?
If there was a drug available to allow a journalist to win the Pulitzer or allow me to win the Nobel Prize, I pretty well think they'd be injecting that drug on the steps of Old Main here at Penn State.
Other experts place blame elsewhere.
I think the people to blame are us, the consumers of sport. We want to see numbers. We want to see performances. We want to see more home runs. We want to see faster 100-meter dashes. The fact of the matter is, you want our athletes using steroids.
And as the debate continues, and science looks for the answers, one ominous fact remains. Steroid use is spreading, and they may not be going away anytime soon.